Frank Crossley grew up on the south side of Chicago. His father was a railroad worker. His mother worked in a factory. In grade school and high school, Frank and his brother excelled in a program that trained junior officers. After high school, Frank entered the U.S. Naval Reserve Midshipmen's School, a college that trained naval officers. He was the only African American in a class of 1,500. He graduated during World War II. At that time, almost all the units in the armed forces were segregated. Some African Americans served on ships with white crews, but not as officers. As an experiment, the Navy commissioned a handful of African Americans to see if white crews would take orders from black officers. Being one of the first black officers in the Navy wasn't easy.
When I joined the Navy, I decided that if I heard the N-word and it was not directed to me, I simply overheard it because it was commonly used in those days. I would not take offense. I would only take offense if it was directed to me.
The experiment was a success. Frank was respected by his men, and pioneers like Frank paved the way for the integration of the nation's armed forces. After the war, Frank was ready to start a career. At the time, blacks with Frank's background could think about becoming a teacher, a lawyer, or maybe a doctor. Frank decided to become an engineer. He knew it was going to be tough as an African American to get a job in the field he selected. Actually, he thought it was going to be impossible.
I decided I would study engineering, and if I couldn't get a job as an engineer, I would either go to Canada or Mexico. Canada had the virtue of speaking English, and Mexico had the virtue of having colored people.
Frank became the first black man in America to earn a PhD in the field of metallurgy, the study of metals. The aerospace industry was just getting off the ground. To build new planes and spacecraft, they needed metals that were lighter than steel, but just as strong. Titanium was as strong as steel, but much lighter, making it the perfect choice for reducing the weight of aircraft. But while steel had been around for thousands of years, the development of titanium alloys was a brand new field. Frank decided to specialize in titanium alloys. He spent years developing and testing titanium alloys that would be light and strong and easy to weld. But when the time came for a promotion that was long overdue, Frank went to his manager.
And he said, "Oh, yes, you are qualified to be a senior member, but because you are so advanced for a Negro, we thought you were content."
Frank Crossley developed titanium alloys that were used in jet engines. He published papers and earned patents, and he proved to the rest of society that African Americans could become officers and engineers.